Thank you, Gail. One of the neat things that we get to do and going around speaking in different Rotary clubs is to see where people meet. And I got to tell you, this is just a wonderful location. This is just a, is this on?
No, thank you.
No?
Is that better?
Oh, yes. There we go. So congratulations on having just a wonderful space to meet. Thanks to Gail for helping get this all set up. This morning, as she says, we're going to tell you about the Music4Life program, how far we've come the past year, and most importantly, how it can be done for Tacoma Public Schools. And we've made some quite significant progress. Let's see if I've got this right. The basic purpose of Music4Life is to acquire usable musical instruments for low-income kids. We normally start with 4th, 5th, or 6th graders, and we do this by acquiring what we call lovingly used instruments that come out of the attics or garages of adults who no longer use them and understand that their highest and best use is to put them back into play. We do have, with adequate resources, we do have the capacity to buy new instruments as well. But normally at the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade levels, these are student level instruments. And so a question that you might ask is why we do something like this. Music seems to be, and instrumental music seems to be a fairly restricted application for public schools. The answer to that is that research shows now that kids who play musical instruments do better in a whole variety of different scholastic disciplines, things like math and science and history and literature and languages, foreign languages, and English, even computer science, and a whole bunch of other very worthwhile scholastic disciplines. And so to the extent that that's true, we're really now looking at Music4Life as an education program and not just a music program. So another question you might ask is why I'm doing this. The answer to that came when Dick Lee from Seattle Public Schools, at the time was with Seattle Schools, a few years ago contacted me and invited me out for coffee. I'd worked with him when I was program chair of Seattle 4. And he said, Dave, you're really about the only Rotarian that I know. Do you think anybody at Rotary might be interested in helping us acquire a few musical instruments for Seattle Public Schools? And so I told him, well, let me answer that by telling you a little story about a boy that I knew in my hometown, which is Viroqua, Wisconsin, in the southwest corner of the state, a little rural community, about 3,500 people. There was a boy there who was 10 years old, and his father had recently died. His mother, at the time, was again totally blind, as she was to be much of her life. She had some kind of retina problem, so she was totally blind, and he had several older brothers, but they were all rather significantly older, so they were grown and gone. And he had a younger sister at home who was developmentally disabled. And at 10, he was starting to get into trouble. And in Viroqua, this really doesn't amount to too much more than throwing tomatoes at passing semis at 10 o'clock at night. But he was starting to hang out with the wrong people. And it turns out that the band director in Viroqua was a wonderful fellow by the name of Emery Nordness. We called him Nordy. Nordy knew that this boy's father had been a fairly accomplished tuba player. And one of those older brothers had also been a very good tuba player, so he got it in mind. He says, well, maybe I could get this boy interested in playing the horn. And he did. And it was like a duck to water. It was something that was just absolutely magnificent. And what it did was it took this boy who was on his way to getting into trouble, took him off the streets, gave him something really meaningful to do with his life, and in the process opened the entire wonderful world of music for him for the rest of his life as well. And so I said, Dick, just in case you haven't guessed it by now, I'm that boy. And I subsequently came out here to Seattle in about 1976 and got on joined the Seattle Symphony Board of Directors and got to know Jerry Schwartz and a variety of other peoples there. But music has just been a wonderful inspiration for me in my life. And so I said to him, I think the answer to your question about whether or not there is a Rotarian who might be willing to help you acquire instruments for low-income kids, I think the answer is probably yes. So we developed a broader program than just to acquire a few instruments, and we wanted to create a success model. And our success model has three components. First of all, you have to have a child who is interested in music and wants to learn how to play a musical instrument. Secondly, you need to have a willing public school district. If the school district is not interested, it's not going to happen. And so normally we start and we work with the superintendent and then develop it from there. And then the third element of the program is a Rotary club or a group of Rotary clubs that are willing to help get it started. And so we acquire mostly used instruments who, as I said, have them in their garages or attics and are interested in putting them back into play. Music for Life actually began as Rotary Music for Life with Seattle 4, that's the club that I was in at the time. And then for a variety of reasons, there were several district governors who came to me and said, Dave, we really need you to set up this organization as a separate 501c3. That's for liability reasons and this kind of thing. He said, and then you need to take the word Rotary out of your name because the lawyers back in Evanston will not pass their muster. So we did that. We set up Music for Life as an independent 501c3 organization, and we have developed it as a program. We now promote it as a program that is Rotary inspired, okay? And there are several reasons for this, but if you're wise, you would think membership development, okay? Because the people who have musical instruments and want to put them back into play will tend to be community leaders. And to the extent that they're non-Rotarians, that's membership development opportunity for you. And we want to make sure that they understand that you don't have to be a Rotarian to participate in a program like Music for Life, which is really intended to be a community service. So we began as a demonstration project for Seattle Public Schools, and it was adopted, as Gail said, last spring for the Highline School District, and that's now the Highline Music for Life program. And in our first year, we have acquired more than 130 musical instruments, and our deal is we make them usable. Okay, so we have a relationship with a music retailer. It happens to be Kennelly Keys in Seattle, and so the other part of our deal is we get them fully repaired, and then we donate them free of charge to the school district. In this first year, among those 130 musical instruments, that includes 5 new violins and 5 new violas that we purchased last fall for the new strings program at Pacific Middle School. A couple of months ago, we presented 15 new guitars and 30 new ukuleles to Superintendent Susan Enfield. Ukuleles are not unusual. They happen to have in the Highline School District a lot of Pacific Islander kids, okay, and they love that. Apparently there's a whole movement afoot now to play ukuleles, so it's really very helpful for them. And then we got, just recently donated a like-new keyboard by past President Nancy Lux of Seattle 4, who happens to be a friend of mine. I was her program chair during her year, and then subsequently for the president the next year. And that is now being used by music teacher Janet Moore at the Hilltop Elementary School. Right now we have about 25 of these instruments that are being repaired and will be donated free of charge to Highline schools. Among these are alto saxes, clarinets, flutes, French horns, a snare drum, several trombones and trumpets. These are the normal instruments that you get in starting a program like this. And so we expect to get more of these instruments as the program grows. And all are being repaired and donated free of charge by Highline Music4Life to Highline Public Schools program. This last May, the Shoreline School Board adopted Music4Life, and that became the Shoreline Schools Music4Life program. So far, we've acquired about 50 musical instruments. We have a Rotary-sponsored program in place to get them repaired. We actually were even given a performance-level trumpet by a woman named Pelland. It's now called the Pelland trumpet, and that is just going to be awarded to a very accomplished young trumpet player in the Shoreline schools. We've received several requests from a couple of parents, and we're also working with other school districts, including those in Kent, Federal Way, Mercer Island, Lake Washington schools, and a variety of others. Because many people now know about Music4Life, we're building awareness about the program. Part of my responsibility, this is a district project. Music4Life has become a district project for District 5030, and that means that I have a responsibility to go around and report to it, about it, to all 55 clubs in District 5030. So we're doing that with the idea of reaching out to other clubs as well, because as I said, our success model is a child who wants to play an instrument, a willing school district, and a Rotary club. And as you know, Rotary clubs are everywhere. They're even in my little hometown of Viroqua, Wisconsin. So this is all done with the idea, as John F. Kennedy said, that a rising tide lifts all boats. For our efforts during the last couple of years, we have been recognized by the Washington Music Educators Association, and we received their Friend of Music Award at their statewide conference in Yakima last February, it was. The WMEA is comprised of music teachers and music instructors, private and public schools, and a variety of others as well, all over the state of Washington. And I happened to meet with Bruce Caldwell, who's the executive director, last week for coffee, and he told me that they're now responsible for coordinating for several other states in the area as well. And so you may not see them, but there are many low-income kids right here in the Tacoma School District whose basic education, whose complete basic education could substantially benefit from an instrumental music program. So my question is, if we can do it in Seattle, we can do it for Highline schools, in Shoreline schools, why can't we do it here? And I think the answer to that is yes. Carlos Santorno agrees and has reviewed our program and asked for our help for Tacoma Public Schools. If you were to be involved, how could you help? Well, certainly you could help financially, of course. We have a new program that we're getting ready to announce, probably in about January, for an online auction program that could be done for Tacoma schools. I heard you, Janet, say something about an auction that you've got going here as well. This doesn't need to be competitive with whatever you're doing now, but we are developing that as an idea, and the difference would be that it's an online program. And certainly you can help us spread the word to your friends, your family members, your neighbors, and your other relatives that Music for Life exists and it needs to be done for Tacoma Public Schools. So with this as background, I think you can appreciate that instrumental music should be a part of every child's education. And so with that, I'll say thank you and offer to take any questions that you might have.
How do you reach out to?
Okay, go ahead.
Excuse me. How do you reach out to potential donors of instruments? How do you find these people?
We do it as I'm doing it here right now. You need to know about it. You can help us by telling your friends and families and neighbors. We also we generate a lot of publicity for Music for Life, whether it's Seattle Music for Life or Shoreline schools or Highline schools, and we're prepared to do that in Tacoma as well. And remember, we promote it as a Rotary-inspired program. So anytime we put out any information about it, we have an electronic newsletter that's called Quarter Notes that we send out. I just looked at the final draft last night around 1 a.m. And that's getting ready to go out. And so we have a very assertive program of reaching out into the community. It's like with superintendents. When I go in and talk with superintendent of schools, like as we did with Carla, we sit there and we explain the purpose, spend maybe 5-7 minutes talking about it, and their instant and universal reaction is, why aren't we doing this already? We need to do this. Why can't we do this already? And so we have a very assertive outreach program. There's another question back here.
Well, I can answer that part of the question. It's because the state wants the schools to focus more on the basic learning and taking the WASL test, and so they end up cutting programs like music and sports. But my question isn't so much that, it's just an answer, but it's how are you working with the local school boosters? Because I know some of these schools, like in Tacoma, a few that I've been associated with, they have a boosters program specific toward music, and they ask parents and they seek to get donations for instruments and some such stuff.
Excellent question. We have, since our very beginning, our philosophy has been we don't need to reinvent the wheel with anybody. So if there's somebody out there that's doing something that could be viewed as cooperative and helpful for developing a Music for Life kind of program, we don't need to reinvent any wheels. We're certainly willing to work with them, and they would be included on our list. You know, I would go and speak to groups like that, and we'd certainly be happy to put them on the mailing list and all that. But we try to do everything we can because there's nowhere to go but up. You're exactly right on this. The state legislature, for whatever reasons, doesn't fully fund public education in Washington State. And there's nothing unusual about this. This is the way it is all across the country. When I first got together with Dick Lee for coffee, he told me that 30 years ago, Seattle Public Schools had an instrumental music program that was a national model. Okay, it was copied by people all over the country because it was so assertive and so visionary. Okay, but in the intervening 30 years, because of levy failures and budget cutbacks, you're right, it's the arts that are first to go because they're viewed as electives or something that kids do just, you know, for fun. Okay, but in fact, this research shows now that unless a child at least has an opportunity to participate in instrumental music, they are severely in danger of falling behind. And there's no reason why we need to make, you know, why low-income kids shouldn't be included in this effort as well. We need to do that because that's what a fundamental basic education is all about. Yeah.